So in today's video, I thought that I would bring you along for the edit. So one of the questions, oh wait, am I recording? I'm not recording. Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. I have just wrapped up a shoot of these raspberry lemon cupcakes, and I thought it would be fun to bring you along for the editing process. I really want to try and bring out the color of the frosting. So what I really want to do is try and play around in the HSL panel a lot more, and I thought it would be fun to show you how much impact you can have on your photo with these settings. For me, editing is probably one of the most fun parts of the food photography process because it's where you can really bring your photos to life and have a bit of fun. So if you're curious about how you can do a little bit more than just the basic adjustments in Lightroom, then stay tuned and join me for this edit. If you're not subscribed already, then don't forget to hit that button, turn on the notifications so you don't miss any more videos. Without further ado, let's jump in. Okay, so I've gone ahead and created my Lightroom catalog. I've imported the photos that I wanted. I went through, picked my selects, and now we're going to get started on editing. So what I'm going to do is just take you through the process of editing this photo, and then I'm going to show you a really quick way to apply the same edits to all of your other photos, which is really going to help you cut down on your shooting time. So for this picture, I am going to start with the basics panel like I normally do, and then I'm going to move on to the HSL panel, and this is the one that I really want to show you today and spend the most time playing around in, because with these pictures, I want them to be bright and airy, but I really want this red to be super vibrant, and then for these little green leaves of mint to just add a nice pop to the photo with a nice complementary color. So I don't want to make it too much brighter because I can see from my histogram already I've got a nice peak in the brights area, but nothing's blown out, which is what we want. So I think I'm just going to boost up my shadows a little bit. Yeah, and then we're going to bring up the whites because this just, I don't know, it makes the photos look really vibrant and bright. But then in order to maintain the contrast, I'm going to bring the blacks down a little bit. And I really like the look that lowering the blacks gives to a photo rather than always lowering the shadows. It just gives a little bit more definition. Okay, for the moment, I'm not going to touch the exposure and contrast because I'm quite happy with how it's looking. But as always, I might come back to it later. So let's just park it for a minute. Okay, next, so I always add a little bit of clarity to my food pictures. Now, I think it really depends what you're shooting. Now, what clarity does is it increases the contrast in the midtones of your photo, so in this area. So as I move the slider up and down, if you pay attention to what's happening here, you'll see that the histogram is kind of spreading outwards in this middle section, which means the darks in the middle are becoming darker and the whites in the middle are becoming whiter. So that gives this kind of very contrasty look in the midtones. So it's something that I find it's nice to add a bit, but not too much. So I think at the moment, I like it somewhere around, yeah, somewhere around 22-ish. Yeah, okay, 25. Let's go with that for a minute. Okay, now with the colors, I'm going to leave the vibrance and saturation completely on 0 because I want to focus on targeting the colors really specifically. So if we move down to the hue, saturation and luminance, the HSL panel, this is one of my favorite and one of the most powerful parts of Lightroom. So what this panel does is it allows you to target each color specifically, and then with the hue you can change the hue of the color, so you can make your reds more pink toned or more orange toned, you can make your greens more yellow toned or blue toned, so you can really change the look of your overall picture. And then with the saturation, pretty self-explanatory, you can increase the saturation of a certain color. So you'll see if I increase the reds, then the red just kind of goes crazy saturated, but no other colors in my picture are affected. Unlike if you just use the generic saturation bar here, then it's just going to increase everything, which, you know, it just might not be what you're going for. So I prefer to do it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the hue and really get those colors looking the shade that I want. So I really want this red to be a vibrant raspberry red. So these are lemon raspberry cupcakes, and I really want them to be super pink and raspberry-like. So I think probably I'm going to end up moving my red slider just a little bit towards the pink side. Actually not too much, because if you do it all the way, they kind of look a bit not real. So I'm just going to keep it subtle and go somewhere around there. And then with the orange and the yellow, what I'm going to try and do is increase the saturation of the little bits of cake, the little bits of cake that you see popping through, because at the moment they're just looking a little bit white and a little bit bland. So I'm going to try and make those. Can you see how the cake in these areas is changing as I'm moving this slider? So I think I want to get them a little bit more on the orange side. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now in terms of the green, this is the other color that I have in this photo, and you'll see as I change the hue, the mint leaves go kind of yellow and dingy and look a bit dead that way, but this way they look a bit too blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to boost them towards the blue side just a little bit to make them look super fresh and vibrant, but not unrealistic. So I'm just going to stick that around there. Okay, and then onto the saturation panels. So this is where I can really make this red color pop. So I definitely want to increase it a bit, but I do not want to go too crazy. I think with food photography, this is the thing. You want to make it look really nice and bright and vibrant, but still keep the food looking real, because ultimately the purpose of food photography is to try and make people want to eat the food. So if it looks like just something that's completely an unnatural color, it sort of loses its appeal, and yeah, it doesn't look that great. So I think that might be just the tiniest bit too much. So I'm going to bring it down to around here. Okay, and then I want to try and see if I can boost the color of the cakes a little bit. So another tool that's handy is next to each of these things, you'll see you've got this little bullseye target. So if you select this, you can actually drop it right on an area of a photo. If I zoom in a bit and then move up, you can click on the color that you want to boost and then drag your mouse upwards. There we go. Or downwards to reduce the saturation. So I really want these looking nice and orange. So this is going to get boosted pretty far. Okay, to me that already looks so much better. So if I can go back and show you, this was before the orange adjustment and after the orange adjustment, and I think it's just put a little bit of life back into those cakes. In terms of the orange, in terms of the green for the mint leaves, I think it's already looking pretty good. I might just boost it to about there. Yeah. Okay, so already, if we have a look at the before and after, you can see how much of a difference the bit of clarity has made on the texture of the swirls. And those colours are just looking a little bit more vibrant than they were before. So on to the last part of this panel, which is luminance, and this is the brightness of each colour. So for example, if I move the red to the right, the red gets brighter and darker, etc. like that. So I might just raise the brightness of the red just a tiny bit, just to really make it pop. And then I'm going to actually add a little bit more saturation, because when you make things brighter, they get a tiny bit desaturated. And likewise, when you make things darker, they get a little bit more saturated. So sometimes you have to tweak and then go back and tweak again and just keep going until you're really happy with the overall look of your picture. That's good. Then I'm gonna just bump up the greens a little bit. Okay, now the last thing that I want to try and do is to make this background a little bit more blue. So right now it's kind of a grey purpley colour. So I want to see if the background changes. Yeah, can you see it changes when it's the purple slider? So what I want to do is I want to boost the colour of the background up. So I'm going to increase the saturation, but then I'm going to change the hue of the purple to be a little bit more on the blue side. So I'm actually going to slide that all the way down. And the reason that I want to do that is because blue is a complementary colour to orange and red. So overall, this is just really going to help those cupcakes stand out. If you compare it to the original photo, that little bit of extra blue is really just helping them pop. So then the last thing that I'm going to do is change the brightness of that blue and the purple to just lift the background a little bit. And then, like I said before, I feel like the shadows in some of the areas of these cupcakes could be lifted. So I'm just going to go ahead and lift the overall shadows a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm also going to dip the blacks a bit more just to get that contrast back in and make sure that I'm happy with the look of everything. Yeah, so now I'm much happier with this. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is move on to sharpening. So the way that I do sharpening, I've mentioned it in a previous video. If you want to go and check out my 3 favorite Lightroom hacks, then click on the video in the top right now. But I'm just quickly going to run through this. So I always use the target point to highlight the area that is the most in focus in the little preview window. And then if you hold down the Alt key while you slide the masking slider, you'll see which areas of the photo the sharpening is going to be applied to. So I don't want every single pixel of the photo to just have a generic sharpening applied to it. I want to make sure that only the edges of things are sharpened. So that is what that's for. Radius is going to go to 1.5. And then in terms of the amount, I just look at the preview window to see the level that I'm happy with. So let's go with about 65. You don't want to go too crazy with sharpening because it can make everything look, I don't know, a little bit angular and just not quite as appealing. I'm going to remove the chromatic aberration. You can enable profile corrections if you want to. It really depends what lens you're using as to how much difference this makes. So you can choose. I'm not going to do it this time because it's not really making a difference. And then, so this is my finished photo that I'm fully happy with the edits now. So you can see the before and after, that all the colors are just a bit more vibrant, a little bit more crisp, and yeah, everything just looks a bit more lively. The one thing that I'm looking at and I'm not 100% happy with is this little white spot here. Now, this is just purely down to how detailed you want to go with your photo editing. But what I would probably do is just click on the spot removal tool, position this right over the top, and then select an area to cover it out. And you want to pick an area that's sort of looks about the same. So this is on the edge of the shadow. So I'm going to take an area from another edge of a shadow. And there we go. So I just feel like that was a tiny distraction. Now it's gone. So once you're done with your edits, if your picture set is pretty consistent, then what you can do is sync your edits to your other pictures to just get your whole editing process done a lot quicker so that you only have to tweak each photo rather than do each one from scratch. So if we have a look at this one here, because it's a similar angle, if you have your original photo highlighted, hold down Shift and target that photo, come over and click Sync. You can choose everything that you want to apply here. So I'm just going to press Synchronize. And then what it's done is carried over the same edits to this photo. So now you can see we've got the same kind of look going on, and this really helps you keep your whole shoot consistent. It helps speed you up, and it's just a really great tip to have on hand. So there you have it. That's all I'm going to do to this picture today in Lightroom. So I hope you found that video useful. I hope you have as much fun editing your food photos as I do. As I said earlier, I think it's the part of the process where you can really bring your photos to life. So I love finding new things to do in Lightroom, and I hope you learned something from this video that you can go try out in your own shoots now. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more videos in the future, and I will see you next time. Bye.